Be advised that the views and opinions of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
You are what you watch. Hello, my name is Harrington Wadko. Welcome to our program. Today is the Barangay Day election, and let's see, most of the news, if I'm not mistaken, would be about what issues that go on with the barangay. But you know what? I'm not gonna delve in that after all day. Buong araw, napapanood nyo na sa television at sigurado bukas sa dyaryo, lahat yan, puro mga issue ng barangay. Isa lang naman issue niyan eh. Si Lolo, patay na, doon pa pangalan. Ang pangalan ko, ilang beses na ako bumuboto, wala naman dyan. And as usual, we will be given all kinds of excuses by everybody. It's called the institution that seems to have lost its integrity. And talking about that consistency, about institutions that lose its integrity, what about the scams? What about the scams that has hit the news in the last 2 months? Paano naman yung Kongreso? Paano naman yung executive? Ang presidente, tawag naman sa kanya, DAP. Paano naman yung Supreme Court na tinanggal nga yung ulo ng Supreme Court, nabayaran pala yung mga senador? What about all the different issues? Ang dami po nangyayari sa bayan natin. As of late, we've got the Manila mayor who will take the place of the president to apologize to the Hong Kong nationals. Ang galing, ano? Ano yung politiko kaya yun? O yun ang tamang dapat gawin? Of course, let's not forget, we have the really terrific issue about, let's see, the 60-year-old popular celebrity singer gone out with a 16-year-old. But that's okay. If I'm not mistaken, the interviewee is not exactly all male or female. But then again, institutions. Alam mo, when we talk about institutions, you're talking about branding. And branding, if I'm not mistaken, is simply the consistent delivery, very consistent delivery, of any brand promise. And if you have integrity, that's called the brands. Kung wala kang integridad, walang brand. Does the president have the brand? Do our institutions have the brand? Does anybody up there in government, as far as our leaders are concerned, have the integrity? If I'm not mistaken, it's not necessarily the people any longer, but the institutions. The institutions are suffering. What are the solutions? Alam mo, madaling sabihin natin at tuloy-tuloy natin na, alika, mali talaga, mali ito, mali yan, mali ito. Tama no, madaling maghanap ng mali eh. Kaya ba natin ayusin? Ako, nahihirapan ako. The people in general have one strength, and that's during voting days. And today is a very good time to do this. But what happens is the massa or the bulk of the majority will vote dynasties again, back into power. Don't we see that? We also will vote, of course, the best of the celebrities. Mga artista, basketball player, and those that we know of. If it's looking for the learned, the experienced, looking for the great minds, looking for solutions, even standing by political parties as institutions, wala na yun. Wala nang pag-uusapan na ganyan. Ladies and gentlemen, to talk about the issues, but to look on solutions more than aggravating the situation, which you and I are already familiar with. We have a very popular, although first time on my show, a columnist from the Philippines, Miss Carmen Pedorsa. Hello, Miss Pedorsa. Maraming salamat na rito ka. Thank you for your generosity and allowing to sit here in front of me. I've been following your columns very regularly in the Star.
Thank you.
And I find that you're offering solutions more than aggravating the situation, wherein most editors, well, everybody writes about the news, siyempre, yung scam, Sinapoles. Of course, the three stooges, if I can call them that, in the Senate, because I'm not sure I know what's right or wrong anymore as of lately. Ba yung travel, They're not allowed to travel. I don't know if that's legally right or incorrect. Ang daming issues going on. But what caught my eye, and I asked that you sit with me, is you are for the position of former Chief Justice Renato Puno, who I've had the fortunate experience of interviewing as well. And you like his idea of reform, which is constitutional change.
Yes.
Can we talk about that, ma'am?
Yes, I've been an advocate of constitutional change through two people's initiatives. And
That's right. I read at one time you were promoting that.
yes, yes. Also, constitutional change is something I have been living with for quite a while now. I was also part of the 2005 Constitutional Commission, which was formed by President Gloria Arroyo, the former president. Okay. There are three things that are absolutely necessary for us to get out of the rut. One is that the constitutional reform with regard to investments. We need money. We don't have the money.
Foreign direct investment, you're
Yes.
referring to that, okay.
And we don't have the money, we don't have the technology. You see, when we say other countries do better than the Philippines, it's not only because they get investments. It's because they allow expertise to get in, and then it
Know-how.
brings the country up to date. The second, very, very important, is the political structure of the country. The presidential is such that it's a one man, one vote, national elections. And so what you get are the ones who are the most popular or the one who has a lot of money.
The senators.
Yes, that's the problem really, because a one-man, one-vote general elections will mean almost, no, I don't say that almost, always, that the majority will overwhelm the intelligent vote,
Which has been the case.
which has been the case. So there are other countries that are big democracies like India, but India does not suffer from that same thing, even though their illiteracy is just as bad as ours, precisely because they have structured it so that even if there were a large number of uneducated, they vote only the representatives. It's called parliamentary system, but I wouldn't use that, as someone said to me, because,
What would you call it?
well, it is a system through which Congress is supreme to is more important
Then the executive.
than the executive, because that means that those who represent the people are the ones who are important.
So it seems it's similar to what America has. It's still a democracy. You still have the three branches. But as we've seen in the last week, diba, when the Republicans versus the two political parties pushed it to the brink
Yeah.
of politicization, if you can call that.
Yeah.
Of course, one had to blink. The Republicans lost.
Yeah.
But the legislator shows the power over the executive. Kaya-kaya nila i-drive.
Yes.
Parang ganon.
No. Pero I don't say that is also what our Malolos Constitution was. It was the Congress that appointed the president.
It just didn't win eventually.
Yeah.
Nangyari yung
No, well, the Americans
changed it.
They wanted us to copy exactly what they had, but without the colleges, So it became, it's a bastardized version
yes.
of the presidential
A
system.
mutation.
Okay,
Over
okay.
the years, naging mutation.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's the second one. That also must go with the third thing, and that is an evolving federalism. That is so important for two issues now. One issue is the issue of the Muslim areas. That war has been going on for quite a while now, and really, we have to accept, and the Muslims accept, that if we had what you call a federal system, and that can be work against this war and this secession efforts, because in a federal situation, they are still with
The Philippines.
at the same time that they are able to exercise what you call the things that belong to them.
Sharia law
Sharia
and
and
all their
others.
institutions because of
Yeah.
their religion.
Yeah. And I think that in time, it will become something that we will accept. They also call it subsidiarity, where anything that the local government can do for themselves, let them do it.
Huwag na
what-
masyado centralized going up.
yes, because that's what happens. All the corruption happens when it.
Correct. But you're
Currency.
talking of changing institutions. What should come first? To improve the institutions or to do the congressional change first or the charter change, so to speak? Because it's really revisiting the Constitution, correct?
Yes.
What should we do in your analysis? Unahin natin yung change sa Constitution to allow us to improve the institutions or unahin natin institutions before opening up the Constitution?
Yeah, that's why I've called the campaign a crowdsourcing campaign
Okay.
for amending the Constitution, because it's important for the people to know that they are the author of this Constitution. So in a way, what we will have would be
Local crowdsourcing. Because crowdsourcing is basically international. You can crowdsource all around the world.
of
It's
course,
used in the
but then
internet, yes.
Filipinos are all over the world.
Okay, in that
Yes.
sense. Okay, you're right. Okay.
Yeah, and not only that, Filipinos are great users of
The internet.
internet.
Yes,
So we
yes.
must make use of that. That in my time when we had this People's Initiative, that was the problem. We didn't have the means through which we could get
To
the
reach out.
people. Yeah, to reach out to the people. And even then, by then, when you went to the people, you had already what you call a draft constitution. So even if you went to them and said, they approve. But that's not what we want. What we want is the process through which the people become the authors of the constitution.
Excuse me.
After that,
Sige.
after you gather all that, no? I mean, I'm opening a page. We are opening a page. That's what I asked Chief Justice Puno to head this, so he becomes a symbol and an advocate of crowdsourcing a constitution, meaning opening it to the people to say what they think it should be, what this country should
To make them part of the Constitution that you will offer
Yeah.
for
yeah.
voting.
And then after that, which is like what they did in Iceland, actually. So after that, after it is, all of that will come in, and that's a constant processing from people to experts, from experts to people. It's a conversation. And when that is done, then a group of, let's say a small group of experts will then shape it up into a formal constitution, which will again go into a referendum. Now, all this is for me, well, there you are, educational, but see, not voting. That's
First,
it.
the composition of what to
Yeah.
vote for.
Yeah.
Because voting is jumping the gun, is what you're saying.
Yes, yes.
And now the presentation for integrity would be former Chief Justice Renato Puno.
Yes.
Acceptable, may integrity, agreed by
Yeah.
everybody. I find only one major flaw. I call it the tyranny of the masses. I'm talking of the masses that really don't care about the Constitution or what's going on in this country. This is the only thing I've become very, maybe you can call me cynic. But I believe that the reason why we have oligarchies and we have incompetence in government and why the institutions have mutated into the sorry state that they are today, be it for the military, the judiciary, even more especially, and the legislative, of course, and of course the shaky executive who is not sure which way it's going to go, trying to. It's because the tyranny of the masses, because people don't care. In this barangay election, I'm almost sure what we will see tomorrow are going to be the relatives of the mayors, the congressmen, the senators. They're all going to be relatives, and the people keep voting them.
It's the system.
Yeah, it's the system. But
So you change the system, and I think, I'll say something very controversial, that after crowdsourcing a constitution and drafting it, you must have, a transition council through which all the...
interesting. Yan, bago yan, Transition Council. Okay, sensitive, but please keep going.
Well, some people are still discussing it, said they won't even call it a transition council, they call it a transformation council. But definitely, if you are going to want a new constitution, a new way of life, a new system. You can't have it with the old. That's why you have to have this revolutionary government that will then, or transition council, but it's, I call it transition council with revolutionary powers to change things.
This is outside the realm of what we call democracy,
Yeah.
or what is accepted to be the concept of democracy around the world.
Well, not really. I think not. Because, I mean, all these democracies were born out of this.
Correct. But the sitting democracy and the powers that are today,
Well, but you crowdsourced it, you see.
which is basically like a
the
voting.
people's constitution. It's just a process through which you can bring in the reforms. That's understood. And the transition council is temporary. It must be temporary.
I think the key would be to identify the integrity that will work on the crowdsourcing and all that information that must be extrapolated and put together by the learned. Hindi pwedeng masa yan eh. It's got to be the
Yeah,
learned.
there are two phases. One phase is that in the internet, when you say crowd, that's the internet crowd. They are intelligent. I mean, you couldn't call them the masses. Although,
Okay,
if you write it in Filipino, you will be surprised how many intelligent Filipinos
Will
who
reply.
speak and tell
I've
you.
seen it.
Who will tell you what
Yeah.
they think should be done.
I've
they
seen
do it
parts
even,
of that, yes.
They do it even better than most people who say they are intelligent because they graduate from La Salle or Ateneo. You know, I have seen those graduates of Ateneo or La Salle who say that give the president a chance. You know, let him do what he's doing because that's the one which will accelerate reform. But I mean, you know, I find it a very unacceptable reason because when somebody does wrong and it's doing harm to the country, you must speak up and
Yes,
say so.
yes, yes. That's
And
your
they-
responsibility, actually.
And they come from the educated class. They don't come from the uneducated class. The uneducated class, that is when I was a member of the Constitutional Commission, we went all around the Philippines. There was a man.
15 kayo, di ba?
Yeah.
Kasama mo si Jimeno, I remember. Yes, yes, yes.
There was a man who stood up and he said something very intelligent. He said, Ma'am, yung mga sinasabi niyo, gusto namin yan. Pero alam na ninyo, kasi wala kayong magagawa eh. Kayo na, gawin na ninyo. Kami na lang, susunod kami. In other words, the masses really follow the intelligent leadership. But then our system is such that you don't get intelligent leadership. It's not because of the masses. It's because of the system that doesn't allow intelligent leadership to get in. Because A, you need money. A, you need popularity. You see,
The system.
we can go over it again, but I'll be repeating myself.
No, okay, hold on.
It's a chicken or egg thing. Who comes first?
No, let's find out. Let's find out. We're going to have to take a short break. We're at the bottom of the hour. Ladies and gentlemen, don't get confused. We're not here to confuse you. We're here to open your mind. If there's one thing we always try to do in this program is to generate critical thought. And your role is to sit back and try to understand it, no matter how complex, because there are solutions. Or, well, our guest seems to think there are. Alam mo naman ako, I become cynical. So the question lies, are the institutions, are they still volatile enough? Can they be changed? Or is it a better question to say, are the powers that are today that stand between change for the better, will they even allow it? Because after all, they are the powers. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Hello, my name is Herton Watko. Our guest, we have the columnist from the Philippine Star. We've got Carmen Pedorsa. The issue, let's see, the topic is crowdsourcing for a new and better constitution. So ano ibig sabihin ng crowdsourcing? And at this point, we've already discussed in the first part the proposal of possible change, and because this is a solution that's being proposed. So I guess the questions are the institutions, can they change? Of course. Kaya pa ba natin palitan to improve them? The answer is yes, it should be. Problem is, how do we do it? The proposal would be to generate a transition group, if you can even call it that. I think I better refer back to our guest before I throw a wrench into this whole system. Ms. Pedorsa, kaya ba kaya kung yung mga powers that the oligarchs that are already staying in power, not to mention the families who are the strong lobbies behind them, who are now in industry, who are the billionaires in this country, and who have stayed billionaires in the last 6 decades, since the 50s. Do you think they will allow it? Was this not the script that we are supposed to play so that they become richer and the country gets poorer?
Well, you have to take the example of the Marcos dictatorship
We
at that
brought it
time.
down.
At that time, yes. So we will need, I'm afraid, the cooperation of the two biggest groupings that we have that are organized. That's the military and the church. Now, both the military and the church must not come in until you have a civic, a sort of a civic government in place, because this is what matters.
Well,
This
first,
is
it's gotta be by
very
the people,
important. It's very important that you have a civic component before you say, well, the military must come in because the country is going to the dogs.
Correct.
Okay, so you have this transition government. Once you have the transition government, it is the duty of the military to protect the government that is in place.
Okay.
Or it can come simultaneously
With the help of the church,
with the help of the church, correct.
being predominantly Catholic.
Even predominantly. Oh, well, even the Muslims want it.
So it need not be just Catholic Church.
No, well, it's the church because we are predominantly
okay,
Catholic.
okay.
Yes. But I mean, what I'm saying is that we have to have something organized nationwide to be able to get this going. You know what I mean? The change, the transition government. Because I think you think that's the problematical thing. How do we form the transitional government? The transitional government will have first there's the crowdsourcing that will take place.
That's strategy.
Then there's draft constitution, and then
That takes a lot more. That can take a year.
no, there are already about 3 draft constitutions that are there waiting for. One is the 2005, one is the 1973, one is the 1971. I think that one that
So
originally
before Marcos took over the martial law.
And then, well, I have some friends, very young friends, who have already started and saying that, well, we can have one that is patterned after the Malolos constitution. So it's really parliamentary. But basically, it's to get out this thing of electing by popularity.
Okay, what is the suggested proposal for creating that civic group? Kasi this composition of people have to be with integrity, without question.
Of course.
Meron pa naman tao, no? Hands down ako kay Renato Puno. Okay.
Yes, well, Jose Abueva is also part of that group.
Yes, he was.
Yes,
Dr. Abueva.
Yeah, and we are looking at lists now.
How many people are you looking for a transition
Well, this is the
government?
thing. We are not going into
Specifics.
Yeah, and then also, we are only talking about crowdsourcing, meaning dealing with the postings that are made by the people out there.
So the revolution is going to come from the crowdsourcing initially, wherein the people take the initiative to talk about it. Initially, from again the standpoint will be the internet,
Yes.
because
It was
it's
done in
already there.
Iceland. It was done in Iceland. The problem with Iceland was that they didn't have our problem. What they had was they had a parliament in
Okay.
operation, but the people began to feel that the government was not getting anywhere by the problem with the banks. You remember the banks were this
They
was
had to
going
go
to be
after- they had to
just
go
going to
against the
be a
banks.
catastrophe. So they decided that a group of citizens decided, let's put up a crowdsourcing, sort of get the people
So they can say it's the people who actually did it.
to be involved, and they did it through the internet, because internet is a technological vehicle which we can use for getting that. Before there was none.
Well, look at the scam. Look at the pork barrel outrage.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
all internet. The million people march.
Yeah.
Um,
I think million people march is pretty old-fashioned now.
But the fact that it was brought about, I'm just saying the strategy, the platform was the internet.
Yeah,
It got people out there. Or was it
I,
pushed by media?
I don't want to talk about that, but
You think that was promoted by media,
well, some
traditional
people think,
media?
no, yes, I think so. Yes,
Channel 2, in other words.
Yes, yes,
It was
and
promoted.
also,
Sabagay, nasa TV yan,
no,
ano?
there's one there. There is another school of thought which says that the idea, in fact, seemed noble, because what they wanted to do was really hit only the senators, Congress, so that then we are going to have a stronger executive that can do things. In other words, they would have strengthened.
And they opened the can of worms.
It
Bumaliktad.
opened the can of worms.
Lumabas tuloy yung
Because
DAP.
it's a need. Because it just...
I heard that too.
It's inevitable, that what will happen now is that the president is the one who spends the goods.
It's correct. It's
So,
absolute
yeah,
power.
Yeah.
It's a legal dictatorship that
It's a
we are
legal
living under.
dictatorship.
How do you propose the crowdsourcing? You mean it's got to be spontaneous? There's no real one leader. It's got to be the people that has to want to do it.
No, it starts. Phase one is we open a page. I'm meeting the designers of the page, group of very young people.
Interesting, okay.
Yeah, we're opening the page. Once the page is open, there are already many issues, For example, a page is like your advertising, so you said, branding. That is going to be branded in the sense that there will be columns for suggestions, there will be columns.
So it's going to be the people's page. It's not going to be limited
but
to one
some
source.
of them, no. Some of them will also ask questions. Those are more intelligent will say, no, I don't agree with him. So it's a discussion. It's a process by which, in the end, what we will have will be the raw data for a
Change, a constitutional change.
constitution. You can't predict these things, I mean, when I say Revolutionary Council, it should be the first thing that should come to mind, because as you said, so but how do because after a draft constitution, then we open it to a referendum, again, because that's the right thing to do. Well, anyway, going back to Iceland, they did have the parliament, which was the one who, what you want to call elite. And
And
so
they
were
addressed it.
taking care of. They were partial to the banks. Okay, so the crowdsourcing took place, and then what happened was that it went to a referendum, and 2/3 voted for it. So you can see that the composition of the rich and the masses is 2/3 masses and 1/3 elite. Okay, so we don't have that problem, because we will not have. I think if I were, I'm not going to be the only one anyway. But if we are what we'll do is that the Congress is going to be scrapped. Hindi gaya sa Iceland. The Congress was there and they approved it. They approved that holding a referendum,
So
drafting
the
a
pace was
constitution.
quickened.
Yeah,
There was a
yeah.
semblance of law.
Yeah. But they also had a long quarrel, because they couldn't ignore the 2/3.
The voice of the people,
The voice
Vox
of the
Populi.
people. According to my source, I'll probably be talking to them. Yeah. According to my source, is that there was an election there. I don't know. I didn't look at it yet, and that the election is finished now.
Are the Filipinos truly interested in seeing change? I mean, okay, 2 weeks ago, we had this funny event which was given authority and legal disposition, the Iglesia ni Cristo. they had the event, and interestingly enough, the day before that, it was the El Fitir, the Muslim holiday. And we stopped classes, banks, and institutions. I mean, we stopped the economy. We grounded it to a halt so that the INC can come in and hold their event. Of course, there were many innuendos na rinig natin, ano?
Yeah.
But watching the beneficiaries of the giveaways that they were pulling out, nagkakagulo yung masang tao, di ba?
Yeah.
They were climbing all over each other, they were grabbing what they can and only to find out to get disappointed. Wala naman binigay, naubos. Di ba? Sila pa nagalit. Isn't that what we call the tyranny of the massa that we see now? Aren't they the ones who are causing the problems today? And do we expect them to crowdsource to be part of it?
No, I think the crowdsourcing, in a way, will not include the masses. As I
Hindi
told
pwede,
you.
no?
No, not only that. They're not really into computers. In computer, the crowd will be an intelligent one, and you don't be so pessimistic about Filipinos, because Filipinos are all around the world already. They have families here, and they've learned a lot. You know, they've learned a lot. It's we don't really know. We can't quantify what we see are the poor people here. But at the same time, we have very intelligent Filipinos wanting to help the country, and that's the one we will tap. So, and once we have already changed the constitution, and we have something like parliamentary or a presidential form in which people will understand that their representative must work for them.
So this movement has to be stronger than the powers who have them today. For example, be it Pinoy, the president, the executive. So the movement has to be stronger than him to topple him, to say, hey, to give in tama yan. Ito ang gusto ng taong bayan.
It will happen. I am very optimistic, as you said. But who would have known that Napoles would ever come out?
Good point.
That's why. That's why.
I think Napoles was an accident that happened.
Well,
Like
there
you
you
said.
are. There you
It
are.
is an accident.
There
It
you
was
are.
used as a strategy only to go Ori.
Yes.
Nagkamali eh.
Nagkamali.
Yes,
Yes, that's
nagkamali.
right.
But then again, the Student Council presidency, as Joe Arroyo has put it, di ba, former senator, and many others. I mean, not for anything, but you need learned people, excuse me, people with real competence. I'm not sure, one, the president has it, and two, the people behind him.
Yeah.
Other than, I mean, Marcos was many things, but he did tap the technocrats. His intention was wrong. Yun lang ang mali doon, the intent was wrong. And the strategy, the end justified the means, which was incorrect. Diba? Human rights, basically. Now we have the situation the other way around. You got them who are the powerful, but do they know how to change it? Because I personally have met Noynoy, and I know of his family. He's actually a good boy. I really believe he's a good boy. Problem is, yung kompetensya, I don't know. I mean, he's fumbling in the palace, even the three spokespeople. They're all fumbling with each other. I mean, I'm surprised Lacerda's going to London to take a break. I wonder if it's because parang masyado may init ka na, galit ng taong bayan sa'yo, which I think is the truth, based on what I read in all the newspapers. Di ba? Even Balte, mainit na rin kay Balte. Si Coloma na lang. Mas okay si Coloma, hindi umiinit ang ulo eh. Relax magsalita. Parang ganun eh, no?
But government should not be about that. I mean, the fact is, we have no vision, and you
Good point.
can't expect someone like you call Pinoy. I really don't want to tackle issues.
Still a president.
I want to tackle issues, but the fact is, he is incapable of the role that he was given, and for that, I'm sorry for him. But the fact is, the sovereignty rests on the people. So if the people find that something is wrong with the way their government is being run, it's time to move. You see?
We are the boss, as he explained. Problem is,
but this is the
hindi na
thing.
siya nakikinig eh.
He doesn't mean it. He
doesn't
just says
mean it.
that. It's all public relations, PR, and then he goes there and slips in a tent. That's not what was wanted. What was wanted was his complete grasp of the problems there, and
walang
then the
grasp,
steps
ano?
that will be taken. And that's not there. Again, we knew that. Yeah,
we
the
already
record,
had.
the record in Congress, doing
But the
nothing.
people voted him. I mean, not for
No,
anything.
well, it was not quite like that. I think that there were also strategists, and the strategists saw that withdrawals they couldn't win, but they might win in a what you call
Sympathy vote.
necromaniac,
Necromania. Okay.
necromaniac, because people will be remember Ninoy's death, and that's what they did.
Oh, the
That's what they
strategy.
ran,
no.
they ran, and everyone.
Necromania.
Yeah, but you see that in people, you
necromania.
know, that the emotions were the ones stopped.
Pilipino pa man din.
Pilipino and then, yes.
Oo.
Ganun yun. Parang ano, kasi sabi nung isang Pilipino sa akin, kasi ho naman yung ano, yung mga pinamigay na umbrella, bago. Malinaw talaga. Bago at saka matibay, matapang. Hindi yun basta, kung spontaneous yung ano, na dahil namatay, bakit biglang lumabas na lang yung mga payong na strongly made and everything. I didn't even understand what she meant at that time. But then now I think, it dawned on me, you know, that it was a managed thing.
Strategy is one thing, but if the intent is incorrect, then we have problems. In this case, strategy was successful. Intent, we're only beginning to find out if it's really going against the sovereignty of the people or what we want.
Yeah.
Or, talagang walang competence. And I think the worst would be incompetence because
Yes.
it's like going into a car with a driver, maski maganda sa sasakyan mo, pero hindi mo nun magmaneho, mababangga at mamatay ka talaga. Di ba? Parang ganun eh.
Yeah. But then, there's another thing that's very important apart from that, what you call the front of sympathy for the death of his mother. That's for me a front. The real strategy was really the Smartmatic PICOS. That was really automating the elections so that it can be,
Rationalize the win-win.
and it could be managed, you know what I mean, pre-programmed machines.
Well,
They have not answered any of the
No.
questions of Comelec. So what we really have now is an illegal president, because one of the failures of government is that all the votes will have to have been counted. There are about 16,000. I'm not so sure.
hindi na bilang.
Hindi na bilang.
But-
and then also
The last
You-
election was worse.
worse. Oh, kaya nga. There's so many questions that were not answered and that made it under the Constitution a failed election.
Yung issue na lang, yung issue ng Comelec, tsaka si Snow White and coming in, well, he's still on air. And he's still acting commissioner, ahead of the commission, in spite of all the questions that have been confronted to him. But ako, my fault there, where I find fault there, is not the perpetrators of crimes that we see, but a weak judiciary that takes only 100 years for any resolution.
Yes.
See, that's where I have problems now going back to CJ Puno. However, I trust the man and I believe this man has real integrity. I've had a 3-hour sit-down with him. And his brain is fantastic.
Yes.
Ang problema, ba't hindi nga naayos yung judiciary? It only takes 10 decades to resolve anything in this country. I mean, imagine itong problema ni yung tinira nila na 35, the first 35 on the Napola scam. Di ba? The first 35. Here comes the ombudsman who says, give me 1 year. By then, everything will be forgotten. It's like what's happening with the Comelec. Ganon din na naman eh. So, ako, you keep putting everything back. Alam mo, maybe if there's one institution we should change first, maybe it should be the judiciary. And maybe the academe should take the part of that to improve the whole system. Because here we allow delay. And delay for me is an opening for corruption. Indecision allows you to come up and talk to me.
Yeah.
Desisyonan ko yan. Wala ka na magagawa. Parang ganun eh.
Well, I don't really want to discuss the judiciary because I'm not an expert in judiciary. But what I can say is that when Pinoy first entered as president, the first thing he did was weaken the judiciary. That was part of the strategy. Weaken the judiciary, weaken the
That's
legislative,
true. He weakened it.
and then control. That can control. So we will work the same way. You see,
We'll use the same
the
strategy.
same strategy. Turn it around.
Carmen, we are at the top of the hour. Talking with you was nice. As I told you, I guaranteed you I'm not going to argue, and I did not argue. But I like the idea that you have come up. It's well thought of. I can't wait for you to launch the web page and the concept. You have gone further than just the constitutional initiative, the amendment for charter change, which you were part of, the 15-man board, and before that, the 55. Okay, and I've discussed that many issues. In fact, one of them was Asurin, who was anti your group, di ba? And Mark Lim, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and some other people. But the initiative was good, and you have improved on it, and actually now you have definite concrete proposals. You're not just talking the top of your head. May systems kayo on how to do it. You can even propose strategies. I can't wait for you to launch that. It sounds interesting. Naiiba. At least it's not going to be a bloody revolution, and even that you reply to it. You have answers towards that. It's very interesting.
The most important part of it is to draw people in.
And I like the idea that you're using the people to create its own change.
Yes.
Hindi yung kami-kami lang, kayo-kayo lang. Hindi yung mga politiko lang. And then from there, take it slowly and allow it to mutate and not necessarily dictate which way it's going to go.
Yes.
Because it's supposed to come from the people.
Yes.
And if it's the people who need it, it should come from them anyway.
Yes.
And they're the ones who require it. We are at the top of the hour and we have to end the show. Would you like to give a 1-minute or 2-minute message to our viewers directly?
Yes, it's very, very important not to be afraid. For me, that is the most crucial attitude that people must have. They must not be overwhelmed by power. They can change the country. And as I like the word he uses. I had a letter writer who said, padayon. This is a Visayan word.
I read it in your column, but go ahead.
Padayon, we have a country to serve. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, ito yun, ano? Critical thought. So sit back. You'll watch it again tomorrow, this show, at 8 in the morning. And if you go to my page sa YouTube, Harry Tambuatco, give me a day at the most, and I'll have it on. Watch it again. Watch it again if necessary, even twice. I do this show, and it's not all that easy to pick up ideas. These new ideas that are floating or that were presented to you are relatively unique. But it's a solution, it's a proposal. And the proposal is not headed by one person or one authority or one institution. And it addresses, and it's all encompassing it's addressing all the failed institutions that we have. And the reason for its birth is because the people themselves are failing and the country is falling. So it is inevitable that change will occur. So this change is being proposed. Actually, it's quite mild. It's not too rough. It's not like what you call a bloody revolution. After all, it's 2013. It's using the technology of 2013. It's called the internet. And of course, the learned and the body politic that need to participate. We hope you've enjoyed our program, and maraming salamat po. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wait, we'll just sit here for about... You are what you watch.